Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Susan Labadi. I am a board member of CISNA, and I am joined by Sister Azra Naqvi, who is also a board member. And we have our guest today, Brother Hasan Askari. Sister Azra is of the school where Brother Hasan is a parent, and he is in the marketing industry. And he had a presentation for his community about how to market their school, because we all know and respect that this is the time that we want to be able to work on getting re-enrollments for the coming year. So I have asked Sister to inquire with Brother Hasan if he would share with us his presentation and give us the benefit of what it is that he does, because it takes the marketing mind and the insight that he has, I think, to really professionalize our outreach, to let people know what it is that our schools have to make our message clear. And so with that, I would like to introduce Brother Hasan Askari, who is the owner of At The Viziers, Inc., which is a marketing agency. And Brother Hasan, I'll let you tell us some more.
Thank you kindly, Susan, for the kind introduction. So, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you. I appreciate you all joining this morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. Hopefully, you are in good weather conditions. We're seeing some struggles across the country, and I hope you're not in one of those. And our prayers are with you if you are. Today, I wanted to go over some content that we felt would be a good intro into marketing and sales for most small business owners, and particularly go over some initiatives that we worked with Hadi School in the Chicagoland area with, and kind of paint a picture of areas that you can explore within your business that you may not be fully exploiting today, and basically do a little bit of a brainstorming session towards the end, where we can answer some of your questions that you might have. So I'll lay out the agenda really quick. If it's okay, I will share my screen. Everybody can let me know if they can see my screen.
Yes.
All right, it's a thumbs up. Awesome. So just a couple of housekeeping items before we get rolling. This is a session where you would want a pen and paper, because there are a few questions that I'm going to ask you to sort of consider and think about, and you will want a pen and paper to write down those answers. In addition to that, you don't need to take notes of the presentation. As Sister Susan mentioned, it will be recorded, and we'll get that over to you, inshallah, once it's edited. There is a Q&A session at the end as well. So if you've got a burning question or a thought that you want to ask, make sure to write it down. We'll dedicate time to actually cover and go over that. With that said, let's dive into the agenda. To start off, what we wanted to do is go into a little bit about the modern consumer journey. Whether you're buying a car or whether you're buying a burger, you'll go through these motions as a consumer, and we wanted to cover those specifically in the light of education, and more specifically Islamic education. Then we're going to look at a holistic view of marketing, and more specifically digital marketing, and some of the things that you can do, best practices, core concepts, different tools that are available. From there, we'll move into the sales side of the business and go over some of our recommended best practices, things you may be experiencing in your business but not have awareness of, things to that effect. And then we'll end the presentation with a few sample initiatives that we helped curate for Hadi School, or at least give a general direction for, and then kind of get into examples of some of the tactics that you could deploy. And after that, we'll dive into QA. Without further ado, let's talk about the consumer journey. Can everybody see my screen? I know I have the,
yes.
All right, here we go. I'm just gonna move. Zoom sometimes will give me the banner and it covers some of my content. So I'm just gonna move it up in the corner if that's okay. All right, so consumer journey. Think of this as something that everyone experiences as they go through a purchase cycle. It starts off with awareness. So if you're a first-time parent and your child is 1 or in some cases 6 months, and you're thinking about what school they're going to go to, this is the stage where you're trying to learn about what kind of value items you're looking for in education. And it's a crucial stage in developing sort of our internal biases for what's good or bad, or what kind of education or product we feel will want to have. And then from that point onwards, you move into a stage called consideration. Consideration is essentially a point where you are an informed consumer. So you could be a parent who's already had a child go through a school, or you've done your research and now you're ready to consider different options, right? So I know I'm hungry. What do I want to eat? And maybe I want to eat now. I've gone through the awareness stage and I want to eat a burger, and now I'll look for burger joints, right? So same concept, but if you're thinking about yourself in Islamic schools, you're thinking a parent who's looking for an Islamic school for their kids. And they may not be looking for an Islamic school. They might just be looking for a school to begin with. So this is a stage where the consumer is coming in and considering what are their options, weighing them for reputation, weighing them for, what do other people think? And maybe I can get some insight into this business without directly necessarily engaging that business, right? So some of that content and mindset comes into play when it comes to consideration. Conversion is the next step. This is where your value proposition and price have leveled off, or the price is less than the value prop, and so they feel they're ready to give you their money and trust you with it, and essentially start using your service. Right after that comes the consumption mode of this journey, and that's more around really getting the first time experience. Until this point, they haven't truly trusted you, and you still have a chance to break their trust. Honestly, you do all through their journey, but this is where they're extra skeptical, and they're just going to make sure that everything that they thought that was of value is hitting their expectation. Then the last stage we have is loyalty, and I'll go through the stage first. The loyalty stage is essentially where the benefit that they're getting has exceeded their total price and what they feel that they're giving into your business, and therefore they feel that your business is the right choice and are loyal to your business. At that point, it'll be difficult for you to dissuade them, and one bad experience might not throw them off. But again, experience is something that's fluid, so multiple bad experiences still could bring them back into some of the other stages, or put them in the consideration stage for another business. The reason we cover this before we dive into marketing and sales is because we always like to start with the why, right? And a lot of times when you think of marketing or you think of sales, you might think of content, or you might think of value prop, or a bullet list of items that I think would be nice to present to someone. And it's really important to consider where the consumer is in their stage, right? Are they a loyal consumer of another business, or are they in the consumption stage for another business? Are they considering that, meaning they haven't actually made the purchase decision? Are they someone just trying to gain awareness? So we're able to really think of our marketing and sales approach and position specific tactics to each of these stages. And that's one of the reasons we try to cover the journey before we dive into the marketing and sales tactics. So that's most of the components of journey. So a question I would say, which you should consider here, is that make sure no matter what your marketing content is, it is aligned with one of these areas of that journey. So if you think of your marketing today, are you considering that? And some of these are binary yes or no question. And it's okay if it's a no. It's just creating awareness of what your current operating rhythm is. So, sorry, was there a question?
I think if I can ask everybody to mute yourself. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. So, so what I would ask is that you consider when you're marketing today, if you're looking at some of your tactics, are any of those tactics aligned with one of these? Or if you didn't have awareness of it, are you considering what the consumer mindset is as they're reading that communication, and sort of curtailing that marketing to that mindset? The next item I have on here, let's dive into marketing a little bit and talk about core concepts. We try to segment our effort into different areas so we can focus on one component of an initiative and not, get derailed or go off on a tangent just because there's an exciting idea that we feel might yield something. So let's talk about inbound versus outbound marketing. These are the main two branches that we consider of marketing, and the inbound component is think of it as the end of a river, right? So do I want to reroute the river to me, or do I just open shop at the end of the river, which in this scenario might be SEO or maybe a listing that parents go to. So what you're trying to figure out is, as this person makes the decision to buy or are in the consideration stage of their journey, where are they going to go check? And can I be at the top of that list? And essentially that's one area that you can work on in marketing, and there's several different things you can do there. The second component is what's called outbound marketing, and outbound marketing is more of you trying to go out of your way to get attention, and that attention could mean someone is doing something and you can get in front of them and say, hey, have you considered this? Or again, it could be them in any of these stages, so it's different things that you'd be doing, but the core concept is you're trying to get out there and get their attention. Speaking of attention, I wanted to kind of segue into the next point with the concept around attention economy. If you haven't looked into it, it's a really interesting way of looking at things. And ideally, what you're trying to do is get attention, whether it's for branding purposes or demand generation purposes or lead generation purposes. But outbound marketing is completely focused on attention. And if you look at different platforms that are available, like Facebook or Google or Instagram or any of those social media platforms, their goal is to maximize their users' attention and show them content that they like. And so there's a whole business structure or I guess area of business that is all about getting attention. In a lot of scenarios, when you're considering outbound marketing, you may not want to do things like outbound emails for getting people's attention, because they are actively trying to avoid that attention from being stolen. So, banner ads and things that are, sort of forced on you. As a consumer, you develop some immunity to some of those items. And I'm not saying they're not all going to work or not going to work, but the more aware you are, the lower the penetration, so to speak, of that content or engagement for that content. If you flip that model and think more about where do consumers actually go out and give attention, it's a really good way of trying to get in front of them there. So as an example, for a digital medium, people actively will give their attention to their Facebook feed or their Instagram feed. And if you were able to make an impression there, that's just time that they're giving to, to essentially distract themselves or whatever it is that their reason is behind looking through their Instagram feed. And so there's a way to tap into the attention economy and be able to have content that people are less resistant to. Now, having said that, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it, which we'll talk about next, which is engagement and then also impressions. So when it comes to online content, there are two main things that you want to measure as a criteria of whether it's successful or not. The first, I would say, is impression. It's more important than engagement, because impressions are the number of people you're able to get in front of. How many likes do you have on your Facebook page? How many people follow your Instagram page? Whatever medium that you're trying to approach, whether it's a local mosque or whether it's a grocery store, whatever it is that you're trying to approach, even if non-digital mediums, what you want to consider is what would be the number of people that walk through those doors or are looking at the content that I post. If I have only 5 people who like my Facebook page, maybe I wouldn't spend as much time on generating content as I would on trying to get more likes with a few good pieces of content. And that's one of the areas that it's really important. So I would say in the digital strategy, in trying to get that outbound marketing component going, impressions are important. So try and figure out how you can get more impressions before you start working on engagement, which is the second component. We talked a little bit about attention economy and how people are giving attention, but there are a lot of algorithms that are set up in Facebook and you know, Twitter and Instagram and all these platforms where users are essentially unique profiles, and if they engage with your content, they get served more of your content. So when you're curating content, that's one of the main things that you want to consider as well. That this is content that'll engage some of your consumers. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about that later in the presentation, but I wanted to kind of create the difference between what impressions are and what engagement is. Most social media platforms will let you know, here's how many people viewed it, here's how many people engaged with it, and that's a good way to establish you know, what that is. The next concept is somewhat known, but also a lot of times people will focus their marketing effort on the wrong item. So it's always good to establish the difference between web and local SEO. So if you're not familiar with the SEO, it's search engine optimization. It's essentially that end of the river inbound marketing thing that we talked about, which is getting all your content sort of optimized so that when Google scrolls your website or your local business profile, it recommends you as one of the top options to its customers. When it comes to local versus web, web is your website. So if you ever go to Google and search for school, it may first show you a little a map, an insert of a map, and it'll have 3 or 4 options, and then it'll show you a detailed list of websites. So the difference between local and web SEO is local SEO would be that map. It's a listing-based SEO, which has different criteria. So the 3 options that you would see there are based on different factors compared to the websites that you'll see below. So if you go into marketing and think, oh, I really need to improve my digital presence, and you invest a bunch of money in web SEO, it may not be the right thing for you. So it's always good to consider which component you need to invest your time and money and resources in, and that's the difference between web and local SEO. Again, if you have any questions, we can dive into those later. Marketing important considerations. So these are some of the things we felt a lot of the businesses that we worked with sometimes ignore. So I would say, actually, before I dive into this, I just had one concept that I wanted to, one question that I wanted you guys to write down on core concepts. I want you to think about the number today in terms of resources that you spend on your marketing today. And you know, do you choose, you know, where you're placing that content? So is it, you know, more digital? Is it more you know, physical, or is it in basically event-based? And how important is online presence? So these 3 questions, if you can quickly take notes and just sort of write down, what is your current marketing spend? You know, how do you, and outside of current marketing spend, how do you as a consumer engage with products, right? So are you sort of using some of these things, you maybe unintentionally, or giving into some of these things unintentionally? And then the last thing is, how important is online profiles for you as a consumer? And then perhaps consider that for your business as well. Sorry, those were the 3 questions before we dive into marketing considerations. So from the consideration standpoint, the item that I wanted to cover is resources. We do not expect our students to be taught without teachers. We do not expect our accounting to be done without an accountant. We do not expect our housekeeping or cleaning to be done without a cleaning person or a cleaning service, right? Yet somehow we expect our marketing and sales to be done without a dedicated marketing and sales resource. So if you're whether you're a small business or you're a large business, if this is a facet of your business that is a part-time facet, I want you to very much imagine this as a train that doesn't have an engine, right? So there's nothing that's pulling it forward. You are relying on its momentum, right? Maybe you're relying on referrals or some existing parents trying to, promote your business. But the reality is there's no proactive component of your business. There may not be any proactive component of your business if there isn't a dedicated, preferably full-time resource that's pulling and generating leads for your business, because that would be their purpose. So the question here, I would say, is there anyone that wakes up in the morning and thinks, how am I going to grow this school or get more subscriptions for your school on a daily basis? And if that's not someone's job, then that's an area of your business that's underserved. Moving on from there, let's talk a little bit more specifically about understanding and defining success when it comes to marketing. So 3 very basic items that you can hit are local SEO rank. So you can measure your rank for your business category. Let's say your business category is Islamic school, or maybe you're just trying to go for school or Montessori or Islamic Montessori. So you may have different keywords that you have in mind. If you just go to Google Maps and search for that in your area, are you at the top of that list? That tells you that the demand that's generated from those mediums that just exist is coming to you or is not coming to you. A statistic that you need to be aware of is that 67% of Google users will only click on the first 5 options. So 7 out of 10 people are not considering your business if you are below number 5 on Google Maps. In addition to that, the lower you are, the smaller that percentage gets. So if you're at number 6, 3 out of 10 people are actually even looking at your business. And that doesn't mean they're going to actually buy from you. That's just that they are considering your business. So the chances of them actually closing is that divided by the number of options that they're looking at. So one thing I would say from a success standpoint for inbound marketing, I would look at local SEO rank for separate keywords and see how you rank on different listings on Bing, on Google, more specifically for maps. And you can try this for Apple Maps as well. The second component I would say is impressions versus engagement. So you want a lot of impressions, and there are going to be certain types of content that are getting more engagement. So you may want to tweak your content, posts that you're making online to better fit that, to basically use more of the things that are getting more likes, right? That doesn't mean you, sort of lose the integrity of the content itself, but you need to then dive in and figure out what is making this post successful, because as they engage, they update, the Facebook algorithm and the Google algorithms now go and update their preference of your content when it comes to this individual's feed. So that's one component, and we can dive into a little more detail there.
Hasan,
and
can
the last,
I interject, please?
please?
Are these numbers accessible if you go to like Insights? That's where you find these numbers for your Islamic school?
There are different places you can get some of these numbers. Local SEO rank is more of a manual exercise. There are obviously solutions available that you use. For example, we offer a dashboard, and I can get into some of the tools of marketing towards the end, but you can get ranking just manually by going into Maps. There are softwares that record it for you as well. Impressions are something, as you go onto Facebook and you have a post, it'll say very specifically what, how many people this got in front of and how many people engaged with it. So you can get some of that content on those platforms. But there are a little more sophisticated tools available as well, if that's something you're interested in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. The last item that I wanted to cover is MQLs, or marketing qualified leads. If you're not measuring the output of that facet of your business, then you wouldn't know whether it's successful or not. So marketing qualified leads are essentially a marketing individual saying, hey, this person is interested in our product and could potentially be our consumer based on one of a number of things. They visited our website and filled out a form. They called us and asked for more information. They went to our social media post and asked about something. They went to, you get the idea. So it's essentially a consumer reaching out and trying to get an initial conversation established and consider your product further. But you need to track those as MQLs. There are different softwares that are available. We'll go into that into some detail. Nothing very complex. Quite literally, one user can track some of this information. A lot of it can be automated. If you have Gmail or Gmail integrations, we can discuss on an individual level and help, you know, kind of guide you a little bit more, or we can talk about it in the questions timeframe. Know what you're trying to achieve. A lot of times, businesses will get excited about content. You know, it'd be a great idea if we could do this. But the goal of that content needs to be defined first, right? So what are you trying to do? And in most cases, you'll be trying to do one of three things. You'll be trying to create some top of mind brand awareness. This is for your name to be spread so that when someone sees your logo or your business name, they instantly have some kind of a feeling associated. So a top of mind example would be, if I think of shoes, I might think of Nike, right? That's just the top of mind brand. And so maybe the content is, all it's trying to do is just get your brand familiarized with, you know, with your community. The second type would be demand gen, which is different from lead gen. We'll talk about that. Demand gen is essentially folks that may not be considering Islamic schools. Maybe they're just considering regular, you know, public schools. And so what content can you create to create demand? Now, this doesn't necessarily mean they'll choose your school, but the advantage of having demand gen content is that you're able to set, for lack of a better word, biases in their purchase on what they should look for when they're trying to purchase, you know, for your business segment. In addition to that, you can create value items in their mind that they may not have considered prior to this. So demand gen is one component of content. And then the last one is lead gen. And the idea behind lead gen is more, this is a consumer that's already in consideration stage or conversion stage. Their need is pretty known to them. And all we need to do is get in front of them and give them a short value prop, maybe a price or maybe a promotion. And that's more to create direct MQLs. So those are the three types. I would highly consider, if you're creating content or creating an initiative or a tactic, make sure, one, you have one of these measurements in place, and two, you have an idea around what the objective is behind that campaign, so that you can properly you know, deploy it and not have sort of a mixed deployment where your results are then mixed as well and hard to measure. All right, that's the consideration portion. And then just in terms of the questions, I know I mentioned that, you know, is there someone who wakes up and thinks about marketing for your business every day and that's their job? But I would also try and think about, is there any facet of your business that just runs itself and has no ownership? Any major facet of your business anyway? And in most cases, you'll find the answer is no. And if the answer is yes, then maybe you want to use some of those type of tactics that are running that fastest to operate this as well, so you can get some ownership. All right, so let's talk about marketing tools. At the Viziers, we offer an SEO dashboard. That's one of the options. It's a simple, convenient way to bring all of your platforms together and look at that. But this is not really a sales presentation, so I don't want to dive too much into that. I wanted to let you know other tools that are available as well. And if it's something you're interested in, you can always reach out to us. There are review and response platforms. So for Google, Yelp, Facebook, you'll normally get reviews, and you can ask for reviews, so solicit reviews, and you can send the review link to people. My recommendation would be, don't email people. People don't read emails, or don't like to anyway. Text them instead. It'll be easier. They'll be able to go right to your profile and be able to you know, give you a review. So reviews are really good for local SEO, and there are platforms available. There's cross-platform posting is a really good one. A lot of, so I know that's one of our dashboards as well, but the ability to consolidate the amount of effort that you have to deploy to post on Facebook, then post on Google, post on Twitter and LinkedIn, and all these platforms that are out there, they're platforms that allow you to post from one place, and that reduces the amount of time you have to spend on this. There's listing services, which are really important, which really is the accuracy of your business information across different platforms. So one of the components of SEO is that Google will go and crawl a bunch of pages and see, you know, how well your information is, how accurate your information is across those platforms. And if it isn't, it may not consider you a, you know, a business that has a lot of prowess, so it may not, or digital prowess, so it may not, recommend your business over others. And it's something to be aware of as you're posting hours and things like that, because you may have special hours, holiday hours that your parents might not know. If you're going and manually updating them on 10 different platforms, Facebook, Google, it's just more work. There are convenient services that can do that. In addition to that, there's content services, so you can always partner with a content creation company, and they can actually guide you on or create content for you. The last item I added is a really nice inbound tool that you can use. So if you go to trends.google.com, you have the ability to put in any keyword and go down to your specific area and see how that keyword is reacting, and what favorable times and less favorable times for certain keywords are. And then you can kind of focus on those specific keywords a couple of months ahead of time for when you feel that they're going to hit, because that's when you'll be ranked the highest. And we can talk a little bit more about if you have any questions about the strategy as well. From there on, we'll cover briefly best practices. Most of these we've talked about already. When you're creating content, think about engagement. Your parents, your audience, so pause and think about what will make them pause. What will make them stop scrolling and say, oh, this is interesting, and go through that content or engage with it. How easy is it for them to consume it? Because if it's an essay, they might not invest the time. If it's a video, which is 10 minutes, they might invest the time. And so just sort of keep those components in mind and think about your investment into your browsing experience. And that'll help you, make better decisions on the content side. The other component is dedicated specialists. Cannot stress this hard enough, especially if you have a limited budget. This is something that you want to focus on, because if you do not, then you will get the same results, right? The last item I have is, again, I stress this through the presentation as well, but a lot of times we'll focus on the content first. Think of content as the last thing. Tactics, strategies, all of that, they're common. Everyone has some, right? But the business problem that they're addressing is a unique thing. And so try and start with the business problem and work your way to the end and figure out strategies and tactics and things that you're going to do to address the problem. But if you don't start with the problem and start with a great idea, you'll have to work backwards to what am I trying to solve? And you might end up figuring out the thing I'm trying to solve is not really a big business problem. Here's another problem that's bigger than that. That's where I should invest my time. Just a recommendation. With that said, we'll dive into sales. I would say with sales, our concepts are more around value. So a lot of times, especially in the sales discussions, parents and sort of operators will get lost in price, and parents will be really focused on price, but what they're trying to tell you is the value doesn't add up. So it's important to differentiate between the two, and especially for a lot of us that are coming from sort of philanthropy backgrounds or coming in as trying to serve the community, we may not separate value very well. We may just try and offer things and try and break even, and that's not it's not a healthy tactic. And I'll talk a little bit more in detail about that. So make sure you know the difference between value and price. And I would say never confuse value for price, because if someone says, no, this is worth, X $100 or X $1,000, you should know based on, why you are the best or what your belief is about your product and what that value is. If you believe it, it's something that you would have an easier time convincing your parents or your consumers. Let's talk about that a little bit. So one of the easiest ways of figuring out your value is by breaking it up into its components and seeing if you can see some alternate services that offer that same value. So example could be babysitting, or could be a Quran teacher, or some of those little value segments that are all embedded in your overall offering. If you separate them and try to look for that value on a monthly basis, you'll be able to figure out very easily, here's what the value is that we're offering to our students. It's your choice to combine it or separate it and present it to parents a la carte, right? So it's completely up to you as a business owner how you present it to those parents. Values often recognized when separated from main offering. So if you just offer one lump sum $4,500 or $8,000 package, it may be hard for the parent to consume the value behind it because it's a big number. If you break that down into its components and they're able to pick and choose components, so I'll give you an example. Lunch service is maybe something that you guys offer, don't offer. But if a parent is spending 20, 30 minutes a day trying to prepare food for their kids, and if they see that as an option, they might just opt in, where initially they might opt out and say, oh no, I can prepare food. And then when they go through the rigor, say, I probably should just go for the service. So, that is a common service that a lot of schools provide, but try to take that concept and apply it to different facets of your business. There are other components that you can separate, especially ones that are heavy investments on your behalf, whether it be for teacher time or any kind of resources that you might be spending on them. Try to see if you can separate them and offer them as one-offs, as long as there's some kind of economies of scale, or there isn't an economies of scale issue that you would face. Understanding value for parents' perspective. It's very, very important that you understand the value from the parent's perspective. And the challenge is nobody has the same sense of values. Values are driven by filters that we have in our personal lives. So it's not something that would just start off with, here's what this is worth. Because, to someone, a teacher that's been with the organization for 3 years is really important. To others, price is very, very important because they have a certain budget they can't exceed. And so try to get more down to the value and then work your way backwards to pricing. A lot, and I'm sure every one of us goes through this. In fact, I remember when I was engaging Hadi School as a parent myself, that was a key concern. But what you'll realize is that if you can see eye to eye on with the parent on the value, then price will be secondary. So just kind of trying to push the concept around value. The next component I would say is resources that are must-haves. Sales, again, it's the engine that's pulling your train. If there isn't someone whose job it is to create subscriptions, then there isn't someone whose job it is to create subscriptions. Very much like there isn't someone whose job it is to be a teacher or an accountant or any other facet of your business. So I would say, even if you have unlimited funds, which most organizations don't, this would be the most important part if you have leads that are already generated, this would be the most important part. If you have 0 leads, then it'd be difficult to be this person, and you may want a part-time marketing and sales person. But this is definitely an area that it takes a specific kind of individual to deliver on. And it's something that as a business, you can afford via commission. So just keep that in mind. Even part-time positions with low monthly payouts, but high commission value payouts can actually make the difference for your business. And I know it's moving from the philanthropic mindset and getting into sort of a sales conversation can feel a little icky, but cash is the lifeblood of a business. And if you're not growing, then you're shrinking, and that's just the nature of existence, right? So it's an area that we recommend you invest in. When you're investing in it, it's important that you're able to follow up as well. So the question I would ask here is, you need to know some of these bits of information, and we'll get into specific bits of information later, but there's a CRM systems you can use to track that, and CRM is customer relationship management. They're free systems. We'll get into some details later below that you can use, and you can use different stages that the customer might be in. And I've listed those example stages on the right side. Need to contact this person, that's a marketing qualified lead. Needs analysis, that could be someone who's trying to understand what your business has to offer. Value prop, that could be a walkthrough. Someone's going through your facilities, showing where the classrooms are, what the, or it could be virtual, depending on how you run it. There's also pricing and proposal, which is really the point where they're ready to make the decision. Never start with pricing. It's the worst way to make a sale. It's too quick to qualify, you're making a lot of assumptions about what their value is or what they're looking for in terms of value. So make sure you kind of try to hold it towards the end. And if someone comes at you with pricing, try to slow them down and move them into a needs analysis. And then obviously wins and losses. And it's important to track all of this information, because as you're able to see what the flow of this information is in your organization, you'll be able to fine tune your process and realize, hey, I'm losing a lot of leads in the needs analysis stage, or I'm losing them more on the pricing and proposal stage, or I'm losing them more in the to be contacted phase, which is really scary. Or a lot of my losses are of this type, or a lot of my wins are from this area. So if you don't have this information, there's no way to get that insight into your business. And a quick and easy way is to get a free or low cost CRM system, and we'll talk about those in some details. Encourage referrals and non-traditional rewards. A lot of times we'll do discounts or again monetary things which don't really have the surprise or the warm fuzzy feeling that a personal or engaged reward does. And I think that really makes a difference. If you drive out to their place and deliver flowers or something, or something just as a thank you, it may be worth about $20, or it may be worth $200, but it's more personal and engaged, and that will drive more referrals and drive them to be a more loyal consumer. So just FYI on that side. Partnering with other businesses, especially public forums, libraries, and compatible services is also a good option. We'll talk about one of those in an initiative later, which was a recommendation. One of the things that's always great about having your website listed on by just doing a local event or something like that on a public website like a library is that it really improves your SEO score, because public domains have a lot of domain authority. So if they're referencing your website, it really helps you as a small business to pop up. And then obviously expanding offerings and creating add-ons, or actually breaking up your offering and creating add-ons. Both of them can be revenue drivers, and actually help parent absorb the value that they're getting out of whatever you're offering. I know I've covered a lot of content, but we're getting to the questions really soon here, guys. So we've got sales, what you need to know. These are definitely items worth knowing. The number of active leads and what stage they're in. If you don't know whether you've demoed something to someone, if there are 5 or 6 parents that are in your queue, if not, even 1 or 2, you need to know where they stand today, and you need to work through your cycle to say, today I'm going to call all the parents who need this information and guide them through this. You're able to specialize a little bit and really use your time well. And then we can talk about what stage they are when you're losing them. That's an important one to consider. So as you go through your opportunities or your leads, you can consider, you can filter for all the ones that you lost and then figure out which stage am I losing them in? Am I losing them in to be contacted, or as some of the ones that I mentioned? It can have different reasons, each one of them. As long as you're following that rigor and not just giving up the pricing, at the start. The other item I would say is distribution of sales over reasons lost. So you can also record why you lost the sale. It could be a number of reasons. It could be, competitor, they went with X competitor. It could be timing. It could be pricing. It could be wasn't able to reach out. So tracking those reason lost will give you a little bit more insight into a specific competitor you might be losing to, or a bunch of information. It really depends on what you see in the information itself. Also, it's important to see what's your SQL win rate, because that tells, sales qualified lead win rate. So when you've contacted that customer that marketing sent to you, you can say, yes, this is someone who's interested, and that then is a sales qualified lead. And so you can have that win rate to establish how many leads you would need to be able to grow the amount you want to grow. And if you're not proactive about this, remember there's a really nice saying that goes, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So if you're not planning this out and you get 2 enrollments at the beginning of a year, you you can very easily figure out where to place the blame. And not that we should be placing blame, but more importantly, we need to try and plan ahead of time. And this is one metric that's really useful. If you don't have enough leads in the funnel and you have a 30% close rate, right, then you need more leads in the funnel. So you need to pump up your marketing efforts to try and get as many people interested as you can and try and persuade them. And the last component in here, actually one of the other ones I would mention is which marketing lead source wins most. It's a really good one because you'll see that referrals tend to have the most success rate, but depending on different areas that you're marketing, some could have better impact than others. And if they are, or if they have a better win rate, you can take some of the components that are making that campaign successful and replicate them across the other campaigns that you have as well. And the last one I wanted to cover is NPS. Probably one of my favorite metrics. NPS is Net Promoter Score. You can Google this. It's a really straightforward formula. What it is essentially you ask your consumers a question, and the question is, based on your recent experiences, would you recommend our business to your friends and family on a scale of 1 to 10? And if they rate you 10 or 9, they're promoters. They're actively going out and saying good things about your business, or at least feel great about your business. If they rank you a 7 or an 8, they're passive, meaning they think that we talked about the consumer journey. They're in the consumption stage. Value equals price, and if someone else offered better value, or if your value dropped, I would switch. So those are prime targets to sort of reinforce and turn into loyal customers. And then lastly, detractors, which are anyone scored 6 or lower. And these are people who are actively persuading other people to leave your business or are actively looking for another option. And that's something that you can use to actually calculate attrition. So we talk a lot about filling up the bucket. Let's talk a little bit about the holes that are in the bucket and how we can plug it in. All growth effort is for nothing if you don't plug the holes, right? If you're pouring a lot of money into marketing and sales, but haven't actually resolved some of the reasons why people are leaving your business, and this is outside of their natural consumption stage. So if you offer until grade 8, and they leave after grade 8, then that's just natural attrition. That's something you can plan for, but it's important if you do the NPS exercise, you'd be able to quickly see, hey, out of my 80 parents, this many are passive, this many are promoters, and this many are detractors. I really need to work on these detractors first, and so that's an area that you can really focus on, and I would recommend focusing on before pouring a lot of money into sales and marketing, or I guess at least work with it simultaneously. Understanding attrition. Call appearance. Okay, yeah. It's not attraction, it's attrition. I was confused. So understanding attrition as intimately as possible. For the people that have left, they're data points. Call them. Don't try and solve their problem. Don't try and justify why they left. Just absorb as much information as you can. If they're saying something completely wrong, let them say it. That is their reality. That is the truth of why they left. Absorb that information, record it, and then review it. If it's a really good exercise because it's information that's available to you. You can pick up all of those parents' informations and personally give them a call and just say, hey, I wanted to walk through, if you've got 5 minutes, just what your thought process was as you were leaving. If there's any factors that contributed to it, I'd really like to understand more. And that's it. Then press the mute button, force yourself not to, because these businesses are our babies, right? We don't want to hear anything bad about them. But the reality is they do generate a negative experience sometime, and it's okay. Unless we hear that experience, we will not be able to resolve it. And if 10 people say that you do something, hate to tell you, you do it. So you need to either fix the perception around it, and there's ways we can do that. But anyway, that's enough about that. But just keep that in mind. NPS is one way to go about it. Record and evaluate attrition. We already discussed this. This is essentially recording that and viewing it for different areas. Are they dropping off after kindergarten? Are they dropping off after grade 1? Where are they dropping off? And are they dropping off at a certain time in the year? Where are they going to? Some of those items that you can put together and be able to create some insight will help you. Plan and forecast attrition. So if you don't plan that you're going to lose a certain amount of customers or students at the end of the year, you will be surprised, and that revenue hit is not going to be compensated by the growth that you have. So just knowing and having awareness of it is really helpful for a business. And from there, what I'd like to do is dive into 3 quick recommendation initiatives that we work with Hadi School on, and just as an example, and then we'll dive into the questions. So here goes. Initiatives. Initiatives are essentially small plans that you execute in a business that you measure, and you're basically driving for a specific goal. So you define the benefit you're going to get out of that initiative. There's an owner established. That is the person. There's no 2 people, 1 person. 1 person owns this initiative and is responsible for delivering it. And so you have some accountability. You also establish key milestones. These are the stages that this initiative will hit, and establish deadlines for those milestones as well. So we'll walk through 3 initiatives. The first was donation generation engine. This was a concept that we were working on around not just having the staff and key resources and maybe some key individuals going for donation generation, but rather enabling the PLC by creating an event kit or creating some kind of a positioning strategy for them, so that they can go and create donation events, and you are not the only person trying to strive for that. If you're able to create an engine in your operation, the concept is it's not a pedal, right? So with a crank, you're just, the minute you stop, it slows down to a halt. But with an engine, it just keeps going. You put your foot down and it's just going, and you can leave a rock on it and it'll just keep going. And that's the concept behind it. So with donation generation, one of our recommendations was, hey, instead of trying to have XYZ person just reach out and try and generate donations, enable the PLC, enable other facets of your business to go and generate donations. Business alignment. So we also came up with a light example of how you could align with local businesses and use their traffic that's coming in to try and facilitate a little bit of your marketing efforts as well. So this is in the presentation. You can read some of those examples. HubSpot is one thing we recommended. It's free to set up. You can put 5,000 email contacts in there, and you can use it to track your sales, and you can use it to track your marketing. It's really good with capturing conversion rates and lost reasons, and you can create stages for how many days something is sitting in a certain stage, and you need to try and approach it. But it's a really simple and easy to set up tracking system that will help you properly capture data around that facet of your business. I'd say develop a process around handling inquiries so that nothing is slipping through the cracks. A lot of times 1 person will get a phone call, but the data isn't recorded. So the main person who's trying to follow up on this is not able to join, right? Or not able to get to this person. So make sure no matter where your lead is coming from, you've made a lot of effort to try and make yourself visible, to try and create content, to do all of this stuff. If a lead comes in looking to do business with you and is lost because it was never entered into a system, that's a major fail. So we need to make sure that whatever facet those leads are, whatever lead generation source those leads are coming from, they're entering your CRM. So whoever it is that's receiving those, A, either should be the salesperson who's just entering them, or B, whoever receives them enters them into the system and assigns them to whoever's going to take care of them. The last one we had as an example was product offering expansion. We talked a little bit about this in one of the sales components, but we talked about, if people are asking for a gym, perhaps partnering with business who offer some of those services and not necessarily expending a lot of operating expense, right? You don't need to invest a lot in creating a gym to try and facilitate that, but try and serve the underlying need that they have, which is, my kid does not get any physical space or the ability to participate in sports or something like that. So the thought would be to partner with a business that is already doing that and have them come over to your facility or get the kids over to their facility, and you can set up revenue share arrangements, which essentially means you're driving business for them, and at the same time the cost is negligible to you, That's one example of expanding offerings. This could be done with karate dojos or things that are complementary offerings to your business. We also came up with a sample product idea. Again, these are very specific to the business, so they might not be a business need for you. And that's one of the things we try and focus on, is we learn a lot about your business before we make some of these recommendations. But pickup and drop-off service was one of them. There are certain parents that are outside of the city, and it was taking them well over 30 minutes to drive their kids. And we're public schools, it would just be easy to stand at the bus stop and go. So we created this little example for Hadi School to try and see if that was something they could do. COVID kind of threw all of that off, but this is just an example of what you could do with some additional values that you can add and charge your customers for. That said, let's open it up for questions, thoughts, concerns, anything you've got.
Thank you so much. There was so much information in here that I'm glad I was taking notes for sure. Before we get to the questions, I just want to kind of shout out to the value that we have. I think it's so important for us to be able to differentiate what it is that our Islamic schools have. And when you mentioned, like, if you could give examples of your value taken out of the large package, what I mean specifically is you might be pitching, okay, this is my tuition, but you might want to couch it into something like, if you were to have hourly Arabic instruction or hourly Quranic instruction, this is what its cost is per hour. And this is what we offer, as obviously should be a better deal, so that they see the value in what they have. You mentioned, and I think the biggest resistance, quite honestly, for most of our schools will be the rationale to hiring a person specifically for the purpose of marketing and follow-up. And it seems to me that if you have, let's say, a third-party person, if there is something to communicate about your school that's perhaps negative, or a point that it should be worked on, a perception, some of the people in our community might be shy to speak directly to the people on the board or to the people in administration about certain things, but a third party person is sort of an impartial character that they might be able to more easily relate to. And I think really there are so many examples. I would appreciate it, as we go through the questions, if people from the audience can also share perhaps some of the experiences that they have had, because if we brainstorm together, we're able to more commonly find perhaps other fresh ideas that maybe we've not considered in the past. So I like the idea of having like shared ride service or tying in with another local business so that it's a win-win. So it's really appreciated. I'm going to go silent because I've got background noise. So thank you very much. Let's take it to the Q&A now. Can you open up into, if you not share your screen, to see what the chat is showing there? And for people who have made inquiries about if we're going to do a recording of this, we are recording, and we will post it on our WhatsApp groups, as well as CISNA has a YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and you search CISNA Office, you can see all of our past webinars that we have posted. So thank you.
All right, I'm just going to go through the chat, and there's a couple of questions that are here that I'll start off with. I'm sure. So the first question I have, we've got Google Trends as a link in there. Do you recommend any particular CRM software? So personally, I think one that's really good for tracking sales is HubSpot. And I like it because it's free. It doesn't really cost you anything to have. And it's a good place to store information. It has a Gmail integration. So if you're working with Gmail, you're able to record all of that information right against that lead. And it's a good software suite. You can expand as your business expands. There's another one called Zoho. It's about $60 a month. It's a little more sophisticated, has a lot more things that it can do. But those would be my two recommendations. What is the cost-effective way of marketing your school to local Muslim communities? There are quite a few different things. So I would say the key word there is not so much cost, but effective. So cost effective is one thing, but effective marketing is another, right? So if one way or another, anything you do with marketing is going to take effort. And that effort, that time is money. You might not consider it money, but it is time that you could spend on other, operating your business or other areas of your business. And so there is an inherent cost to anything. I would say if you were really trying to start off, one of the things that you can do is have a Facebook page and some community pages that you can link with and share content on those pages, purely for information. It could be educational quotes, it could be puzzle of the day, anything that's just getting your name out there. Once your name is out there and people are talking about you as a business, or people are looking forward to the puzzle you send on Monday, right? That then drives the rest of the conversation. So that's a very low cost sort of entry into digital marketing. If you were, and it allows you to target a very specific community in a very, in a local area. I could say there are definitely other businesses that a lot of local Muslims will go to, halal meat shops and so on and so forth. So you can kind of align with some of those businesses as well. Try and work with them for leads. Sometimes they'll be more than happy to recommend. You may offer them a personal discount for their child, something to that effect. That would be one recommendation. Oops, hang on. For a commission-based marketing position, there any defined formula, structures, implement? So what I'd recommend is, let me read out the question, sorry. For a commission-based marketing position, are there any defined formula structures you can implement for entities such as private Islamic schools? Also, how do you measure the efficiency of such a role once implemented? So let's tackle the first part of it. Yes, there are definitely structures. A simple structure that you could use is itemized sales value, which is essentially you pay them a base base pay of, I'm getting just spitball a number, $500 a month, which covers about 10 hours a week of their time. And then, for every one subscription that they sell, they would get $100. I'm just sort of throwing these numbers out there, but it could be something to that effect. So they have a base that they're getting and then itemized, benefits that they're getting as the students sign up, and they pay you, for let's say an annual subscription or something like that. That's one way of setting up something. Marketing is a little more difficult than sales. So sales, because they're only getting paid for items that they're closing, that's something. Marketing is a little more difficult because it's more lead gen, and lead gen is all about quality. So we don't know whether it's going to be, good leads or bad leads, so the first thing I would say is at least start capturing those leads in a CRM, and that way, when you hire a marketing person, one good way of seeing is how many marketing qualified leads are they generating? And that MQL number that we talked about, marketing qualified leads, is essentially the metric that you would use for that resource. Now you can theoretically, if someone agrees to it, pay them via that. Most marketers would not sign up on a commission because their efforts are an unknown. We don't know whether it's going to generate a lead for your business, because for the first few months, they'll just be exploring and trying to get familiar with your digital sort of landscape. The second part of the question was, how do you measure for efficiency? Sales is pretty straightforward, right? It's just the number of enrollments that they get, and marketing would be the number of leads, and that'd be a straightforward thing. As the role expands, one of the things you could try and look for are how many people are they calling, because those CRMs will actually record, or you have tasks available. I emailed them, I called them. That's something that you can measure and say, hey, how many times did you call for MPS? How many times did you call for a referral for some of our parents? And those can be additional measures outside of the core goal, which is successful MQLs and successful SQLs. The next question, oops. It scrolled me all the way to the top, forgive me. trends on Google. Insight, presentation,
I think next
skills.
we have what is MQL, SQL, and PLC, the acronyms to be explained.
Student enrollment for upcoming school year. There's actually one around if your school has concluded that about 25% of your students' families are no longer at your school due to COVID-related reasons. This is a really tough business challenge. What are the best ways to increase your student enrollment? So I would say, as a parent myself, and I'm sure you guys must be going through something similar. For a lot of the remote learning, there's a lot of angst for parents, right? They especially stay-at-home moms or anybody who's working from home. They got those 8 hours or 5 hours or whatever their child was out to themselves, and they were able to do things. I think one of the biggest challenges is that even though it's remote, they still have to stay somewhat engaged with the child. So whether it's public school or otherwise. So I guess if there was a solution around that, that could really drive some value for any parent. Now, that's not in itself a solution, but that's just an area that if you were to tackle, I think you would be able to drive some additional value and therefore some more business. Hope it helps. What are MQLs and SQLs and PLC? MQLs are marketing qualified leads. These are leads that are coming in from a website where someone filled out a form. This is essentially the marketing department saying, this person is a good person to contact to start selling this solution. And SQL is essentially an MQL that a salesperson's taken, and now they're verifying it and saying, no, this one's not really a real lead. This is just some partner company looking to partner with us for credit card services or something like that. And so they'll reject some of them and they'll keep some of them. And the ones that they keep are called SQLs, or sales qualified leads. And PLC is, I think, a parent lighthouse committee. It's just their Hadi School's a parent teacher committee that essentially executes certain things for them. So you can have your own parent committee and whatever you call them. But it's a really useful a bunch of resources that you can deploy, and there's definitely good ways to deploy them as well. All right, we've got, if we choose to work with you for marketing our school, where do we start from? How does it look like? Sure, I can cover a little bit of it. I wanted to not really go too deep into the sales side of it, but essentially what we offer is asset-based consulting. So we offer you a dashboard that allows you to see your ranking for Google, Yelp, Bing, and a couple other platforms, and we track those keywords and say, here's where you sit when it comes to your inbound side of your business. And then we offer a platform that allows you to essentially post from one place. So we offer you the ability to post to Facebook, Google, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, all from one place. And we have unlimited users. So you could have teachers or other students or maybe family members that are helping you with marketing, give them access, assign them one day that they're supposed to submit some of those content bits. I think one of the things we tried with Hadi School was, here's a motivational Mondays, or I forget, it was What's Up Wednesdays or something like that, and the person in charge filled out the whole year worth of content in 8 hours. So they had 1 year worth of content on 5 different platforms, and so those are some of the ways that our tool can help you. We also collect reviews from all those places, so it's essentially one dashboard for your digital presence, and then we work with you monthly as part of that subscription to help guide you on other things that you as a business can do and things that we can do for you. And that's kind of our relationship with our clients. Do you design marketing campaigns? Yes, we do. We can get into some specifics. If you're interested, you can reach out to us. We'll get into some more of those details, and primarily digital. We're all about digital marketing. All right. What else? Thanks a lot. Where do we start to create a good marketing platform? I would say the 2 most crucial things that you could go and resolve are, 1, your Google My Business page. Google has 40% of market share. That doesn't mean that Bing and all of the Yelp and some of these other platforms don't, but their market share is significantly smaller than Google's, in the realms of 10, 12%. And Google's around 40, actually probably sub 10% for the rest of them. So I would say for Google, I would create a small business page, make sure you populate your products, make sure your business information is correct. Anywhere you see your business information, make sure it is 100% correct. That the words match, the phone number matches, the website matches, every dot. The other component I would say is Facebook. It's also a really good business platform where you can not only have your business information, but also a nice layout for content that people in the community could really benefit from. So reach out to friends and family and people in the area and have them like your page. So that you have a little bit of a local presence and that their friends can see some of the stuff that they might like on your page. And I think that's a good place to start.
I have a rhetorical question. I'm wondering, when you have people back in the day, when you could have people in your school, when you're able to do walkthroughs, if families decided not to go with your school, I'm wondering from the principals who are here or the board members, how many of you actually followed back to them and to say, can I ask why it is that you decided not to join us? You might get some very insightful information. Brother Fawad has a question, so I'm going to ask him to speak.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Hasan. In the very beginning, you talked about the consumer journey. Can you have a multi-pronged approach in marketing to parents?
Most definitely, yeah. That's actually our recommendation, is that you don't focus on one area. A lot of times people will focus on just consideration, right? You definitely want to approach different people, and not only people who are in the awareness and consideration stage, but rather people who could be in the conversion stage already working with another business, right? Or they could be in the loyalty stage for another business. So don't be afraid to approach any one of those.
And then I had an observation, and you've already addressed this by talking about our school should have a designated person. But kind of the philosophy that occurs is we're going to take existing staff members. We'll take 20% of their time from 5 of them, and that equals 100%. And then you have 1 volunteer board member. And again, volunteer is the key, because they don't have X amount of time. And so schools hope that is going to, help them reach their goals or cover their deficits. And I know that's kind of a formula within our community at large. There's only a few organizations which have moved beyond that. So what are your thoughts of moving forward, medium to long term, where we'll move away from that? Thank you.
Well, I would just say, yeah, sure thing. I would just say, would you teach that way? Would you, would you have a bunch of part-time teachers who do that? And would you feel that you're delivering value to that facet of your operation if you were to do that with another facet of your business? And so I think it's because the business can exist without it, we have chosen to think of it as an option, and therefore we struggle. So it's very much a necessity. You can have a part-time function, but 5 people part-time with 1 volunteer, probably not a good fit. I would say 1 person part-time, that would still be better, because at least you would have a dedicated resource whose role it is to deliver that. And there's tons of people available part-time. If you put a free ad on Indeed, it wouldn't be very expensive to drive. The beauty of sales is you can have the revenue that you get drive the pay that you're going to give this person. So, and you can simply pile that onto your standard offering and subtract it. So it doesn't really impact your revenue cycle either. It's not that you're giving a share of your revenue away to someone else. It's rather revenue that you can build on top and say, well, if you close a deal, then this is what you get. And I know I say deal, and this is so much different. And this concept tends not to exist in schools, but the reality is, we're not necessarily the same as a school because you're not getting government funding in most cases. And if you are, that's great. Then you need not have that facet. But if you're not getting funding, or at least consistent funding, it's a definite must, in my opinion, anyway.
I think at the end of the day, we have to recognize our schools are businesses too. Let's not forget sight of that. Sister Azra, you're the one who brought us Brother Hasan as an administrator. Please give us your perspective. What difference has he made for your school? Obviously, it had to be something really positive, or you wouldn't have suggested him as a speaker.
I would thank you for letting me talk. Definitely big shout out to Brother Hasan for what he has done to our school. It's more of like an eye opener for us for 2 years ago when we, had that discussion, and a lot of value proposition and the the lead generated source that we didn't even realize we have, and we lumped them all together and really made us see as to how we put value to what we're doing and how we can offer that to our our parents, especially for those that need specific or has a special concern about their students. What can we do? How we can utilize, for example, our middle schoolers do need more area to, basketball or baseball, or more of areas where they can really open up, and that is one of the concerns. So we did partner with the YMCA, and we were able to have that as a separate item where they choose to take that as and still being able to feel that the school is providing all that, but that the piece was missing, and we were able to fulfill that. So, and another thing is that dashboard, I think, is extremely helpful. And I like his example of how there's no engine, and I think we were functioning without an engine in a sense that our parent Lighthouse Committee has stepped up a lot tremendously to be able to learn from all the different strategies that Brother Hasan has, mentioned to us that we can, fulfill in our school. One of the questions that I also have for Brother Hasan is that the question about, that we ask the parents about the experiences that they have and what they recommend on the business, how would they recommend to their business, to their families and friends about our school. You mentioned about 1 to 10. So I'm wondering, will that differentiate between the loyalist or loyal parent and like consumption? Because I know you mentioned that in the beginning of the presentation.
So yes and no. We look at experience as a very fluid thing. A lot of times people think, what kind of experience do these parents have? And you might do a survey once a year. And the reality is that's not true. There are multiple little pings of good and bad experiences that they're facing. They had to wait a lot in line when they were picking up their kid. They had to, spend a lot of time making their lunch, which has nothing to do with you, but they did it, and that's driving a poor experience for them, right? And so what I would say is, it's not really important what stage they're in terms of experience, but rather what their experience is. So as long as you're consistently measuring that experience, irrelevant of the stage they're in, you will quickly find if they're, the bigger concern be, hey, here's a loyalist who is not a loyalist anymore, right? Or here's a person who just started with us who hates us, or it thinks we're okay. We're about, what we price ourselves at. So I think it's important to kind of take an approach to making it magical for them, and kind of looking at it from the experience into the stage rather than the stage to the experience. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. It's been an absolute honor working with you.
I have a suggestion, if you have a minute. As far as marketing, what we did in our school, it's like last year we had hired a part-time person, pay them about $500 a month to do posts for us on Instagram and Facebook and different flyers. Well, this year, we decided, I'm teaching a yearbook class with 10th grade students, and the person that was doing the marketing can no longer do it. So I asked our 10th graders to come up with Facebook and Instagram posts, because they're the experts. The younger kids, they know that stuff, they love it. And I have them use a program called Canva, and they've been doing an excellent job for us. Saved us some money too. Yeah,
that's a brilliant idea. And it's the beauty is there's a lot of resources that are sitting out there that you can definitely use, and as long as you have some kind of direction in mind on what that content is going to hopefully generate for your business, that's key. And you can really bring them into that loop as well and try and work with them on that and make that a special project for them maybe, or something like that. That's completely up to you as educators, but yeah, definitely that they're really good resources. I saw a few different notes in the chat just to everyone who posted some information. My information is going to be at the end of this, but I've taken down your contact information and I'll be reaching out to you. Any other thoughts or questions?
Can you please pop in your contact information just in case people didn't catch it on your last slide into the chat so that they can copy it directly?
Sure thing. I will
Best
put
way to
that
reach
in.
you.
Most definitely.
Last chance for any live questions if you have them, or anything in the chat. This has really been very informative. I so much appreciate it. We don't normally think in these ways, but it's been an education to say the least, right? And I love the idea, Sister Diane, that you're having students work with Canva, because, this is the way of our students expanding their capacity to have new skills and to use new tools. And, we all need to keep doing that, learning from the cradle to the grave. All right.
Inshallah.
All right. So again, this is being recorded. I'm about to stop the recording, but you can find all of the recordings of our past webinars on CISNA's YouTube channel. And we also will be posting the link to that into our WhatsApp groups that we have. So thank you again, everybody, for joining today. And inshallah, if you have any further questions, you could reach us through snail mail or email, because those things are still working for us. Thank you so kindly for your time and attention. And Brother Hasan, have a wonderful, safe journey back home, inshallah, with your family.
Thanks. Thanks all for the kind words. Thanks for your attention. Assalamu alaikum.